Hello, everyone. Vinaka, everybody. Thanks for logging in. Yes, Vinaka vakalevu, to all our friends connecting in from different parts of the world. It's a very special evening tonight. It's a Monday on the Southern Hemisphere, and it's still Sunday here in Hawaii or here in the United States. So it's been an amazing weekend, I'm sure, to many of you. For me, I'm still completing my weekend, but it's just lovely to be here tonight to have a special Talanoa session. And it's one of our first motivational Monday Talanoa session. And I'm so blessed and very happy as well that we have one of our sisters from Fiji. She's currently logging in from Aotearoa, and she has a very interesting family background, which she will definitely be sharing with all of us tonight. And so I would like to take this time to greet Tupe Solomon Tanoa'i. Bula Vinaka, Tupe.
Nisam bula Vinaka, Dr. Tairisi. Nim bula Vinaka, Kemenina Sarasara Tikomai. Hello to all your followers. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so blessed to be sharing this time with you.
Yes, Vinaka vakalevu sara Tupe. I'm just so happy that we're able to share this space. Since you also have your own similar program or show back in New Zealand. But as I was saying to you earlier, now you're on the hot seat. Yeah, a little bit of a change.
Yes, and I was asking you to go easy on me.
Yeah, so Vinaka vakalevu, Tupe, for sharing this short time with us this evening. I know you have a very busy schedule in terms of your work back in Aotearoa, but I know it's school holidays for the children at the moment. How is it going for you so far during the school holidays?
Oh, it's going great because I took my girls to Auckland to be with their grandparents. So yeah, it's a bit of downtime for me.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And I think for us as moms, yeah, we sometimes, I think, well, maybe not sometimes, we need, some me time and some downtime. But I know you'll miss them, but I know they're in good hands, right, with their grandparents.
You can't give from an empty cup. So as much as possible, my husband and I tried to give each other turns to, have that time to fill our own cup. And also, it's always been really important for us to give that opportunity to our girls to spend time with their grandparents. We've lived all over the world, so we always made it a priority for them to come home at least once a year, so that they know who they are.
Wow, that is amazing. And Tupe, I mean, speaking of home, that's a really, really important word that you and I and many others who are listening today, use a lot, and we connect to, home, your avu vale, ainga, our family. Maybe, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Your family, your ainga, and your vuvale, and how you connected to Fiji, because that's something that's very, very special. And if I can allow you just to Talanoa a little bit about that, Tupe.
Sure. So I come from a Samoan Fijian family. So my mum is from Awhenga in Samoa, and my dad is from Suva. So we identify very strongly as Samoan Fijians. And our connection to Fiji started in the late 1800s when my great-grandparents, Leo and Milovale, moved from Samoa to Fiji as part of a small group of Matai who were appointed by the London Missionary Society Church to start the LMS Church in Nyangangi. So that church is on Thurston Street, and it's called the Efakasa Church there now. And so 12 of my great-grandparents, 14 children, were born in Suva. And so my grandmother was born in Suva in the early 1900s, and my dad was born in Fiji, and born and raised there, and moved to New Zealand at the age of 18. But our family has a very, very strong Fijian identity, as well as a strong Samoan identity, because my dad had one brother, but he also had first cousins who were like siblings to him. And one of his cousins, who was like his sister, had 11 children, and 9 of them came to live with us in New Zealand. So we've always grown up with Fijians in the household, hearing Fijian being spoken, and I myself, my husband, and my 2 children, we lived in Fiji from the end of 2018 to the beginning of 2020.
Wow, that's amazing. I was really wanting to know that Fiji connection, and Vinaka Valevu Tupe for explaining that. So that's a very interesting history you have there, Tupe, especially when it connects to the LMS, the London Missionary Society.
Yes, so it's really interesting because when people ask, just a simple question like, where are you from? For me, I'm just like, oh, okay, how much time do you have? Because depending on how much time you have, you might just get a simple, I'm Samoan, Fijian, New Zealander, or you might get the whole history of migration, in the Pacific. Because I think what a lot of people don't know is that, before New Zealand became an option for people to migrate to, Fiji was a very popular option. So there are a lot of people in Fiji who have, who have Samoan or Tongan ancestry, for example, because those migration routes have been going for quite a long time.
That is so true, Vinaka, for sharing that, because I remember going to school, back in the 80s, and we have a book, social studies book called Fiji, the Land and the People, which is a social studies book. And I remember in that book, it always, talk about the populations in Fiji, and it always have a component on Pacific Islanders, and Samoa and Tonga were always on the top, top of the list. And so this is one example of that. Wow. Man, that is beautiful. And so your dad has connection to Suba. So definitely your family still have that connection to Suba, where your other relatives are still back home.
Yeah, so my dad moved to New Zealand when he was 18, but my family that's going back to my great grandparents, they've lived continuously in Fiji for a long time. They still live there. So when we moved to Fiji in 2018, it was an amazing opportunity for my daughters to get to know the Fijian side of the family. And they formed, some incredibly close bonds, which, made me so happy because that's how we were with our Fijian cousins in New Zealand.
Wow, that is wonderful. And then the other question I have was the move over to Fiji. What took you to move over to Fiji? Would you like to explain a little bit about that?
Sure. So for most of my career, I've worked in the New Zealand Foreign Service. And then the move to Fiji, I took a break from New Zealand MFAT, and I worked at the Pacific Islands Forum, where I was an international civil servant at the forum. And rather than representing one country, the forum represents the entire region at the 14, the member countries in the region.
Wow. And then you were just there to fill in that role that you were playing. And then from there, you brought the family back to Aotearoa.
Yeah, so I was the development cooperation advisor at the forum. And so I did that for a little while, and then came back to New Zealand because we're at that stage of life, both me and my husband, where our parents are getting older. And so we're just, really grateful that we were able to move back at a time when it wouldn't have been so easy to travel back and forth. In fact, impossible because the bubble's still not open. But when we left Fiji, we intended that we would be going back and forth, quite a bit, that we would still go and visit our friends and our family and still, enjoy all of the wonderful things that Fiji has to offer. Yes. But we have to wait a little bit longer for that.
That's right. Yes. And I'm glad in a way that at least you are all in Aotearoa together, because I know the life of being a diplomat would involve a lot of traveling.
Yes, yeah, it does. It did. And it was a dream job for me. So when I went to university, I went with a specific intention of working as a diplomat one day. And, I was really blessed that's, I landed my dream job after I graduated. And, it came with incredible opportunities. So I got to go to meetings all over the world. We got to be posted to different places. We lived in Taiwan, which is where I first met you, actually. So I got to meet some incredibly interesting people all over the world.
Wow, that is amazing. And just kind of coming back to, when you said that you had the dream to be a diplomat, what were the courses? So, like, what was your major that you took at university? And which university did you go to?
So I went to the University of Auckland, and I studied law and arts, and graduated with honours in law. So I took that conjoint degree because I knew it was a very useful degree for foreign affairs, but also for a lot of jobs in the public service. So for New Zealand Foreign Affairs, they don't specify what degree you have to take. You can, I guess, study any discipline, but having postgraduate qualifications is an advantage. So what I did in my arts degree was I studied French and Japanese, and I loved languages growing up because we grew up hearing Samoan and Fijian in the household. My grandmother lived with us and could speak English, Samoan, Fijian, and Hindi fluently. So we heard a lot of different words, different sounds, and I was always very interested in languages. So that's what I studied at university. And then when I joined Foreign Affairs, part of my job was to learn Chinese fluently. So I did that as well. But I do think that Pacific people have a tremendous advantage when it comes to learning other languages. First of all, I think the most important thing is to know your own language so that you're confident in your identity. And I think that's probably one of my life goals is to learn Ngangana Samoa and Vosa Vakaviti fluently, which I haven't learned it yet. So it's still a life goal that I'm working on. But I think we have such a big advantage in being bilingual because it is a springboard for learning other languages.
Wow, that is amazing. And I'm sure knowing more than one language is kind of an advantage for being a diplomat, as you just said. Eh? Wow.
It is. And I think what it does is, once you make an effort, even if you don't speak the other language perfectly, you're showing humility, first of all, and that you're willing to, make yourself vulnerable in trying something new, and that you're, really going out of your way to try and make a connection with the other person.
That is wonderful. And I also noticed your daughter is learning and speaking fluent Chinese?
Yes. So when we lived in Taiwan, my daughters went to bilingual school, and the older one, because she had more exposure to Chinese over a longer period of time, was able to be in the native stream. And so she speaks Chinese quite fluently.
Wow, that is just so beautiful, to watch, the work, some of her work online and some of the videos that you put up. It just, makes me smile, to see someone as young as her, taking on a challenge, because the Chinese language is not an easy one to master, but if she can do it, it's so encouraging, for other young ones not to be afraid to take any language. Wow, so congratulations to her, and tell her to keep it up. And I think you mentioned about Taiwan, and I think for our listeners who are listening in, a few things that I wanted to say was the role that Tupe was saying earlier on in terms of her work in Taiwan. We actually met, I think we met as well at the Auckland airport, and then we continued over to Taipei. So I just have to say publicly to those who are listening in, just thanking you for your warm hospitality, for looking after me. We went out for dinner. I remember I still have pictures of that. So Vinaka Tupe for doing that.
Oh, of course. But that's what we do as Pacific people. I was drawn to you as soon as I saw you, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's another Fijian in Taipei, so I've got to look after you.
Yeah, no, I just really want to acknowledge that, and watching you, with your photos in Taipei, and then seeing the family moving over to Fiji, just the transition was beautiful to see. And not only just for you as the diplomat, but also seeing your husband and your children, joining you on that journey. And particularly, that connection to Fiji that you talked about. How does your husband feel in terms of the travel, from Aotearoa to Taipei, and then to Fiji, and then back again? How does he adapt to that?
So my husband, Esera, he has been incredibly supportive of my journey. And this is, in order to be a diplomatic family, you do have to partner with someone who is fully on board, because it's being a diplomat is more than just a job. It involves your whole family. It involves your whole family moving countries, moving schools, and for my husband, it meant that for many years he couldn't work. And so he really took on the running of the household, and for him that was his job. And yeah, so I mean that is really the only way that that I was able to do the things that I've done. And you know, for every diplomatic family, it involves some kind of conversation around, you know, where are we going to go, because some places you can't work, or maybe even, you know, taking turns, you know, okay, well, we'll go on this posting, and then when we come back it's your turn, or everyone has to figure out how they're going to manage your careers. And the way that our family managed was that Esera was a full-time dad, and so I'm always, you know, grateful to him for that. But it meant, so when we were dating, our very first date, I was going for my interview to MFAT the next week. And so from the very beginning, it was kind of like, you know, if we're going to be together, then this is what life is going to be like. So thankfully, he's been very supportive.
Oh, Vinaka Vale, I think I can see his comment. Bula Vinaka, Esera, for listening in, and I'm sure you are one of Tupe's fans. He's just saying online here, Tupe, that he loved it. So Vinaka Vale, Esera, for supporting our sister, Tupe, with all the achievements she's had. She's been an amazing trailblazer, I must say, with her work as a diplomat, and also now coming back to Aotearoa via Fiji, which is really cool, connecting back home, and now doing a lot of interesting things. So what have you been up to lately? Tell us.
Well, so I guess, you know, a good place to start is that I'm no longer a diplomat. I had an amazing time in the Foreign Service. But about 3 years ago, I started to feel, you know, that there were some things that I wanted to process. And, you know, being in the position that I was in, I got to meet amazing people in different sectors, such as yourself. You know, I was very proud of you when you came to Taiwan and, you know, spoke at the museum on your field of expertise in lapita pottery.
Yes.
And I got to meet, you know, people in many, you know, different fields of expertise. So a lot of filmmakers and artists came to Taipei, and, you know, rubbing shoulders with those people had an impact on me. And, you know, I started to think, you know, there are stories that I want to tell as well. And, you know, there's a different side of myself. There's a creative side of myself, which I had completely forgotten about. You know, once I went to university, and once I started, you know, I got my dream job, I started my family, and just, you know, life took over. And I just forgot that I was a creative person who liked to tell stories, who liked to sing. But all of that started rekindling about 3 years ago. And I wrote my first web series called Misadventures of a Pacific Professional. And then, like, once I put that story out there, you know, it was a scary experience at first, because, you know, once, you know, you put your thoughts out there, you become vulnerable. And, you know, it's just kind of a scary thing to know that, you know, people will be able to see your thoughts. But once we got the web series out there, and we started touring it and talking to audiences, it was such a rewarding experience to, you know, receive the feedback, to have people connect with the story, to open themselves up and start telling their own stories. So, you know, that connection to other people was extremely rewarding. And it just really motivated me to keep going and to keep talking about the things that are important to me.
Wow, that is amazing. I love the way you know, explained it before that you landed your dream job, right? Straight after your graduation. And I know at this time, there's a lot of people who have graduated, and one, either they still looking for work, or number two, they ended up in a work that they did not dream of. But for you, you're one of very unique people that landed what you actually wanted. And then you have that shift that actually, shows um, courage, so what actually motivated you, to have to take that leap of faith to shift from diplomacy and now into other roles that we will go through very shortly. So maybe just maybe one quality that you can share with us.
Okay. Well, I think, so as I mentioned before, so part of it was that I wanted to, use my creativity. Another part of it was that I mentioned that I was, trying to process, some things that were happening in my professional life. And so what that was about was that I was going through a period where I felt like I was being overlooked for leadership roles. And it really made me take a really good look at the reasons, why this was happening. And, I was, taking on board, feedback from the people, I suppose, who were holding me back from these roles. And, I was getting various different forms of "you're not ready." And I thought, there's actually got to be something more to it than that. And what it boiled down to for me was that leadership looks different to different people. And I started to think about the things that I have to offer as a leader. And bear in mind, this was a few years ago now. So I really do feel like there's been a huge shift, especially since the pandemic, in what people consider good leadership to look like. And at the time, the things that I valued was, inclusivity, service, humility, consensus-based decision-making, things that we in the Pacific place an emphasis on. And that wasn't being recognized and rewarded at that time. And so that was the real driving, I guess, the motivating factor behind Misadventures of a Pacific Professional, because I thought, it's really hard to, I didn't want to just say things. I wanted to show what leadership can look like. And so the web series that I wrote, and which went on to do quite well in web festivals, is about a young Pacific woman who bumps up against unconscious bias because of her age, her ethnicity, and her gender. But she shows leadership without conforming to, I guess, male European ideals of what leadership is supposed to look like. She shows it in her own way.
Wow, that is amazing. I love the fact that you wanted to show, right, what leadership is, and not just having, either discussions or talking about it, but you want to actually show it. So congratulations, for actually taking that leap of faith and start working on that web series. I was, here in Hawaii and watching you, and Esera and the team and the achievements that you have achieved within this short period of time. And I know you have this huge, opportunity in front of you to have more. Is that something you're going to plan to do, to continuously maybe write more of the web series or expand on that?
Yes. So we're currently in pre-production for the second series. And what we want to do is talk about the same issue of unconscious bias, but from a male perspective, because even though there's a lot of attention that goes on the gender pay gap, in New Zealand, actually, the ethnic pay gap is worse. So Pacific males get paid less than Balingi women, and women of, other ethnicities. So the two lowest paid groups in New Zealand are Pacific males and Pacific women.
Wow, that is amazing that you're able to utilize the creative arts, to deal with, such issues like this when it comes to gender and ethnicity. Wow, which can be sensitive, on lots of levels. But wow, yeah, huge congratulations to you for that bravery, yeah, and the ability to take on this creative path and be able to do it in such a way that you bring so many people with you, and at the same time they're learning something, not only just our Pacific people, but it's a whole world watching. Well done.
Thank you.
Wow, I can't wait to see the next the next series. So please keep me posted, when you release the next stage, of your web series. Woo-hoo, that's exciting. And for you being a woman as well, I know there's lots of women who are listening in right now. I can name a few here. Bula Vinaka, Sarah Pettigrew, connecting in from Masterton, I think. Losalini Batikota, one of our Fijian sisters connecting in from Mongolia, in the much northern hemisphere. So there's a lot of women who are here listening and watching us talking. But in this case, it looks like we are not just talking, but walking the talk. Yeah, my sister? That's the way to do it. So from the web series, I also know that you mentioned a little bit about music and you wanted to sing. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you have done so far?
Sure. Well, music has been my latest creative pursuit in terms of what I've put out publicly, but it's something that I love to do since I was little. And I guess at the time that I was choosing a career, I knew, at the time, I'm talking like 20 years ago, the only way you could really put something out is if you got signed to a big company. And so I knew I probably wouldn't be able to pursue that path. So I just, filed it away in the back of my mind, even though I still wrote songs and I kept them to myself though. And so the only people who had really heard my songs were my husband and children, and they mainly only heard me singing in the shower. And then when I started, with the web series, I just started to think, you know what? First of all, it's a different day and age now. You don't need a big contract to record your own songs. So, and you can market everything yourself. So that's what I decided to do. And when I first started recording my EP, I was really only doing it for myself and for my children, because I just didn't want, these songs which I had poured my energy and my emotions into, I didn't want no one to ever hear them. But the people I was thinking who would hear them was my children. But then we started the whole process of recording, and the producer I was working with, who is really respected in the Pacific community in New Zealand, like, but this is a lot better than than we all thought it was going to be, because I suppose when I explained what I wanted to do, I explained it to him like I just did now. I was like, I have these songs and I just want to record them for my children. But then he was like, these are really good. So we started, so we recorded the songs in the first single while we were living in Fiji. We decided we wanted to record the video there and showcase the Fiji that we fell in love with. And so, we call the video, amongst ourselves, it's our love letter to Fiji. And it's got a lot of support from Legend FM, and we've had 26,000 views on YouTube, and that's we feel a lot of love from the Fijian community. And yeah, I guess we're really, really proud of the video because I guess we get to showcase, the place that, we love. And I guess the realness of it, I think, is something that people comment on quite a bit, because I think for a lot of people who don't live in Fiji, their image of Fiji is a resort. And, the resorts are great, they're fantastic, but there's so much more to Fiji than resorts. And yeah, so we show, the marketplace and the night markets, the nightclubs, and just things that we love doing when we were there.
Wow, yes, that was beautiful. I love the way you described it as, being real, and not what would be the opposite of it? Maybe something that is artificial, yeah, in a way, like the tourism brochures, maybe that visitors see Fiji to be. But the video, for those of you who are listening in, we will put on our page, on the Talanoa with Dr. T, the link to the video, and please also subscribe as well to her YouTube channel. I think you have one, Tupe. So
Yes.
yeah, it is beautiful, and yeah, one of my favorite parts was the market. Tupe, that was just, it just gave me that smile, and also the memories, right, that I have growing up in Suva as well, and going over to the market. So that was a place that I connect to, with all my relatives and everybody. It's like the meeting place, but that was really nice that it was included, yeah, in the video. Wow, so well done. So will there be another song you may be releasing soon?
Yes. So we've got another one coming up very soon. We've got in total 6, so another 5. The next one should be out in the next couple of months. But the thing is, because all of the stuff that we do, the web series, my chat show, and our music, my husband and I, we fund it ourselves. So that's the only thing that kind of slows us down is, we have to save the money. So it's all, the song itself is ready to go, but because for us, the songs are a vehicle for telling stories. So we really, we want to invest in a really nice video for it.
Wow. It's just amazing to see, like you have dreams, everybody, have dreams, but in terms of Tupe, dreams, immediately becomes a reality. It's just amazing how that works for you. And for me, one thing that comes to mind without Talanoa right now, Tupe is, like life is so short, right? Even despite the pandemic that we're going through right now, it seems like for you, when you want to do something, you just do it. What would be your advice for youths or women who are listening in today in terms of making their dreams come true?
First of all, I think I think a big thing that holds a lot of people back, and I know this, held me back, is, feeling, unworthy of, pursuing a dream or realizing a dream. And I think the biggest thing to come to terms with is that you are worthy. And if you have, if you have been given a talent, you've been given a talent for a reason, and God wants you to use it. And yeah, I think the other thing too is to realize that you don't have to be the expert in everything yourself. But, really have a think about, the people that and the relationships that you can leverage to help make something a reality for you. And so that's how my husband and I have been able to get a lot of things done, is that we work in partnership with other people who have the skills that we don't have. And, that's been, a huge factor in being able to do a web series and do a music video and to record music and do a show, is working in partnership with other people who are driven by the same things. So money is not, I guess, a big motivator for a lot of people, but everyone who's come on board with a project that we have done, even though we do, do prioritize paying people for their time,
Yes.
but a lot of people have done things for less than what they would normally do for a commercial project, because they believe in the vision and they believe in the greater goal of what we are trying to do.
Wow, that's wonderful. I kind of look at 3 C's when you were talking. One is creativity, another one is collaboration, and of course, number 3 is a community. Yeah, so different levels of community. In this case, your husband and your children and your immediate family, and other creative arts community, and then it just expands from there. And I like the fact that you're able to identify the gap and you shoulder tap those who can help you. That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, I mean, it just shows I think one thing I like about it, what you're just sharing, you're showing your vulnerability, but at the same time, you're showing, oh, I cannot do this, but I think I know who can help me. So that is awesome. That's a really good template. For those of you who are watching this Talanoa session, it's called Motivational Monday. Who wouldn't be motivated just by listening to Tupe in the last half an hour? This is amazing, So again, I can tell that you don't take no as an answer. You just go and do it, right? Having a do it attitude. I think I like that. Vinaka value for that. Tupe. Now, you mentioned about your talk show. Can you tell us a little bit about that, my sister? Because I was actually looking at the mug that you have in front of you. So I was going to ask you if I can have one. Okay, never mind. Tell us a little bit about your show, please, my sister.
Sure. So it's called Talanoa Tupe. And so it happened, during lockdown last year. I think I'm a big believer in God putting people into your life for a reason. And there was a new Pacific TV channel starting up in Wellington called Oriana TV. Mm-hmm. And the commissioner for shows and the director of the station called us about playing misadventures of a Pacific professional on the channel. And we said, hey, listen, if you're starting a new TV channel, we are interested in, collaborating we've got, a few ideas for a show. So I told him about the idea for a chat show showcasing Pacific peoples, and he thought it was a great idea. And within a very short space of time, we got the show up and running. And I think that project, like with a lot of other projects we've done, we just really felt God's hand on it, and that there were, I guess, one of the things we noticed after the show aired was, we wanted the show to talk about the things that made these people successful, and almost all of them talked about God and about the role that faith has played in their lives. So that was, I think, a real blessing. Wow. I think, we're just really happy to, for Talanoa Tupe to get off the ground. And I guess one of the main drivers for me was, having worked in policy, I've noticed that there is a lot of attention on negative statistics. Yes. And the reason that's necessary in policy is so that decision makers can see where resources need to be focused, and they can see where the problems are. But the difficulty with that is it can create a dominant narrative about our people, and it needs to be balanced out with, lots of, different media showcasing the positive things that our people are doing and the amazing things that they can achieve. So, shows like Talanoa with Dr. T and Talanoa with Tupe, I think will always be a need for these kinds of shows, so that people can diversify, the narrative around our people can be diversified and people can have a diverse range of ideas about what our people are capable of.
Absolutely. That is amazing. I love that. And no, you're absolutely right. Our people there's so much to celebrate about. As you just said earlier, there's so much attention on the negative side of things, or just looking at the negative statistics. But what can we do to actually look on the other side of the coin? And I'm so glad that you're doing this show. And what's your plan for the long term of the show, Tupe?
So I think eventually what we'd like to get to is 100 interviews. But there's only so many weeks in the year, and as I mentioned before, we don't get funded. So we try to do everything as economically as we can. So I think it will probably take about 5 years maybe to get to 100 shows. But it's interesting. I mean, we don't measure our success by analytics or by views, even though those are very encouraging. But when I go and talk to schools, I meet kids who say that they watch the show with their parents or their grandparents. And I went into university recently in Wellington, and one of the students said that she watched our show and it was the reason she had enrolled. So it's things like that keep us going and spur us on, and make all of the hard work worth it.
That is amazing. And I think those are real stories, right? With real voices and the real impact. You are so right. Sometimes when people focus on the numbers or, other things that they might think is important, those things like making that student go and enroll, that's a huge success in itself. And I'm sure there's so many more. That's the only one that you heard directly from the student. So I'm sure the 5 years as well, Tupe, will go very quickly. And I'm sure you'll have support that will come your way, to make your show grow and fulfill the aim and the objectives of it. Wow, well done. And I was just thinking, coming back to your music, you did your EP, because I know I worked a little bit with Creative New Zealand, and I know they always kind of look at, track record of what you've done. And I'm sure, if you create more of your own music, there will be, funders who are out there that love to support you. Have you thought of that too?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I guess that's the other reason why we fund ourselves, and probably this is another word of encouragement to people out there, is that we were realistic that without a track record, we wouldn't be able to apply. So all of these things we've done on a shoestring budget just to show what we can do. And our hope is that we'll build our audience and be able to show that one day in the future we will apply for funding once we have established our audience.
Wow, that's wonderful. And while you're talking as well, I keep thinking about your mom and dad, and I'm sure your siblings as well. How has been their feedback or their reaction to see the things that you've achieved in this short period of time?
Oh, well, my parents and my family, they're our biggest fans. And it's been amazing to have their support. So, Yeah, I mean, I am really conscious that, everything I've done, anything that I've achieved is not the result of my efforts alone. It's the result of, my parents' hard work and sacrifice. And, also even, my siblings, they have, I could take things for granted that they couldn't take for granted. And, they really supported my mum and dad in the early years when they were starting a business and when my brother and I were still little. So, I always acknowledge the role that, my parents, my grandparents, and my siblings played in where I am today, as well as, my husband as well. So I was very, very fortunate to have the support of the family that raised me, as well as the family I have now.
Wow, no, that is amazing, Tupe, for you acknowledging, the many hands that supported you. And of course, Esera is listening in, and he's, a big, huge fan, Vinaka.
President of my fan club.
Yeah, Vinaka for supporting, this beautiful, amazing woman who, just kept going, and I'm sure the future is very bright for you, my sister, and there will be so many people, as you mentioned, who will be there to offer you support in times when you need them. So to come to the end of our Talanoa, and I know there's a lot of our young girls who are listening in, and some young boys as well, coming to the end of our Talanoa to kind of ask for any advice or tips to those who are listening in terms of, looking at their choices of their talent, maybe, or academic pathway, anything that you would like to share to empower them.
I guess the first thing that I would say is that I spent a very long time working on my weaknesses to try and get them to a mediocre level. And now, having come through that journey, I, have realized that actually it was, I could have spent more time working on my strengths and the things that made me different, because your difference is your advantage. And that's the thing that I've realized now, is to not shy away from the things that make me different. Even the fact that I'm, wearing my my island kimono right now, my bright earrings. When I first started my career, I tried to blend in with everyone else and wear black and gray. And I feel like I'm much more confident in who I am now, and confident in the things that make me different. And once I embraced those things, that's when my career really took off. So there's that's my first, I guess, piece of advice, is your difference is your advantage. The second thing I would say is that you might change jobs many times, and if you I guess think about your strengths and what the world needs and what you're good at, you will I guess that's a good way of staying connected to your purpose, no matter what your job title is, and no matter what job you have. Yeah, it's just kind of figuring out, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. There was something you mentioned earlier, which was really, I'm just going through my notes.
Yeah, those are the things I would say.
Wow. What else were you? There was just some really cool points you mentioned. Oh yes, the word self-analysis. That was really, really powerful. To hear it from you. Where you're able to just analyze your own set of strength, as you just said, that was really, really humbling. And I think that's something that I know a lot of our listeners will be able to take away from our Talanoa today. And even for me.
I'm glad.
Yes.
And oh, so, and just one other thing I thought of was, you know, God gave us many talents. We are multifaceted beings, and we don't have to put ourselves in boxes, and we don't have to worry, you know, about timelines. We can create our own timeline. I think if there's one message I want to get out there about my music. You know, I'm 40 years old now, and I have, you know, a single out, is that you're never too old to pursue your dreams. We are the only, you know, we put limits on ourselves, and we don't need to. So I guess, parting words is just live life abundantly.
Wow. Woohoo. That is so beautiful. I love that. And even for you mentioning about the colors you have on, you know, even subtle things like that, you know, I think for you being a diplomat and now you being a, you know, a creative individual with, you're working in the field of diversity and inclusion advocate. Is that something you are doing right now? Can you just say a little bit about that?
Sure. So I guess diversity and inclusion. So that's something that I'm really passionate about,
Yes.
and that's the driver behind the web series. And with a lot of, I get invited to speak at a lot of events because of my work in this space. But it's something I do as my passion rather than my job. So I guess, yeah, so what I talk to community groups and businesses and conferences about is, I guess, how you can create more inclusive workspaces and how to, I guess the thing is, because we all have different talents, we all come at things from different perspectives. Yes. And what we need to ensure is that we are including all of those different voices at the table and in the room. So I guess what I do is twofold. So because I mentioned unconscious bias before, I guess how to, you know, if you're experiencing unconscious bias, and most of us do, because all of us do have unconscious bias. It's a shortcut the brain takes to help us process information quickly, but it can lead us to make wrong assumptions about people. So I talk to people about how you can check your own biases. So there's things that you can do personally. So identify which groups you hold certain views about, and then examine why you hold those views. And you know, if you hold a, you know, stereotype about a certain group of people, then, you know, you have to try and consciously train your brain to think differently and maybe expand your knowledge about that group of people. But then there's also, so that's at the individual level, but then at the systems level, what do we need to do? And so what do companies need to do to increase diversity in their companies? So hiring practices, they need to examine their promotion practices, things like that. And yeah, so there's a whole lot of things that I talk about and write about in my role as a diversity and inclusion advocate.
Man, that is amazing. There's one of our sisters who's connecting in from Dubai. She was just making bula Vinaka Safaira. Thank you for connecting and watching us tonight, Tupe. She was just mentioning about the disparities regarding Pacific Islanders' pay scale. And she had a question there on how did you deal with that when hiring islanders within your company. So so that is just, you know, I think the question that she's asking will be something that we can all think about. It doesn't have to be just you here in this case, but all of us who are listening, or even those who will join us later on, you know, thinking about those disparities. And I just want to say, Vinaka, to you, you know, for taking it on board rather than putting it in a too hard basket, you know, and not deal with it. You know, you actually took it on board and create something creative out of it.
Yeah. So the Human Rights Commission in New Zealand has started an inquiry into the Pacific pay gap. One of the things which can be a solution to pay disparity is pay transparency. And so, yeah, so that is, you know, being transparent about what people are being paid at different levels, and companies being transparent about how you get to the next level. Yeah, just in terms of the people I've spoken to on my show about, you know, there's, I guess, a lot of anecdotal evidence about, you know, when pay is not transparent, how that hides a lot of things. And, you know, people think that the pay disparity is, you know, for lower skilled, you know, because of lower skilled workers, that, you know, is what explains it. But actually, I know from a lot of my friends who are very highly qualified, well educated, and who, you know, hold a lot of, you know, high positions, that, you know, even at that level, because you know, a lot of companies are not open and transparent about what one person, you know, about what, you know, different people earn, that can result in, you know, you being a qualified, you know, person who is being paid a lot less than, you know, one of your peers.
Wow. And it's music to my ears to know that, you know, the Human Rights you know, Commission is aware of this, and also looking at an action, you know, to take things forward is looking at pay transparency. So I think Sapphira will be very happy with what you've just shared. So Vinaka, Sapphira, for mentioning that. And I'm sure this is not the only time we're going to see Tupe. I'm sure she will be back. This is just part one. Because our Talanoa today, you know, is so, you know, very fulfilling, you know, in lots of ways. And I'm sure for those who are listening in too, they will want to know in terms of your web series and your music, and your talk show, Talanoa with Tupe. How can they access all these platforms? Would you like to share it with them?
Sure, we have a YouTube page, so search for Poporazzi Productions, Poporazzi, Poporazzi Productions. So, and you'll see all of our video content on there.
Oh, okay, all right. And I'm looking at your backdrop.
Yeah, this is our logo. My husband did this, yeah.
Oh wow, Vinaka, Esera. So Esera's got lots of other hidden talents, Tupe?
Yes, yes. So yeah, if I didn't mention before, so most of our time together, he's been a stay-at-home dad, but he also produced the web series, and he directs Talanoa Tupe, and he's acting now. So it's been, yeah, but all of our creative stuff has been a blessing, because it's, you know, a real family affair and something we do together.
Wow, that is wonderful. Listen, Vinaka vakalevu, Esera, for your amazing support. So I can see that he's already put the link on our page of Vinaka. Wow, she's onto it. And you never know, I might invite Esera sometime in the next couple of weeks if he's free. Yeah, to come on board and Talanoa with us. So Vinaka vakalevu, Esera, for sharing the link. So for those of you who are listening in and enjoying our Talanoa today with Tupe, you have the YouTube channel over there. So please go and subscribe. Yeah, don't just click and watch and then you forget. Make sure you subscribe and see the amazing work that they do. So you can see that they have the web series. She's got her music, and also she's got her talk show, Talanoa with Tupe. Wow, amazing. So thank you so much, Tupe, for spending this 1 hour, I think, that we've got so far. Yeah, I think we're on Fijian time or Samoan time. Yeah. Vinaka vakalevu Tupe for coming to the show and sharing your Talanoa today. So before we finish, I usually invite my guests at the end of the Talanoa to say a few words. So if there's anyone you would like to acknowledge or anyone you wanted to do a shout out to, this is your moment.
Just first of all, Vinaka vakalevu, thank you so much, Tarisi, for having me on the show. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you, and I've really enjoyed watching your Talanoa. So a real pleasure to be on here. I think I've had the opportunity to acknowledge my parents and my grandparents, my brothers and sisters, and Esera and my 2 children. But I also just want to give a shout out to my Fiji family, especially Itu Vuyasawa. I just want to give a shout out to my cousin there and just let him know that I'm thinking about him, and Lily Vuyasawa as well. I just want to say big thank you, Vinaka vakalevu, and hello to everyone who's tuned in today.
Yes, Tupe. And I think at this moment too, we will think of our families back in Fiji, especially during this lockdown that they're going through at the moment. The students or the kids at school, they're going on early school holiday. I think the Coca-Cola games was canceled. So there's a lot of I think it's kind of a rough time back home, but I'm sure our Talanoa today will bring smiles, to your family who are watching in from Suva, and to all your creative friends and fans who are watching as well. So again, from Team Talanoa with Dr. T, I just want to wish you all the very best, Tupe, with whatever that you're planning in front of you, and with the support of Esera and the girls, and of course your parents, you will definitely get more dreams come true. And you're such a wonderful inspiration to many of us, and you're motivating us, right, to fulfill whatever dream that we have. And yes, if you have a dream, you can do it and you can reach it. Yeah, Vinaka vakalevu, and enjoy your evening over there in Aotearoa.
Thank you. Enjoy your day in Hawaii.
Yes. Vinaka vakalevu Tupe, and thank you so much to all our fans and friends who are watching in today. So Tupe came in today as part of our Motivational Monday Talanoa series. And in the following Mondays, we will be inviting different friends from all over the world, or even some back in Fiji or Aotearoa, to come along and join us on this Talanoa. And Nemai Vudango, I'm sure Tupe, you know Nemai from the Pacific Network. Vinaka vakalevu Nemai for listening in. So she's saying hello to you as well, Tupe. Nakvalevu Nemai, and keep up the wonderful work over there in Aotearoa. And Vinaka vakalevu Tupe, Modemanda.
Modemanda.
Yes, Vinaka, Modemanda to everybody. Take care. Mahalo.